So when you were in Turkey and you
Yeah,
had
there were
these,
different people. There were Salafis there, there were Deobandis there were Sufis there were people with different backgrounds, different types of Hanbalis, different types of Muslims. There were youth there were people who had businesses and organizations, people who wanted to start an organization. And for somehow it just became this transformative experience. Now, if you felt that the 4 days we spent with each other was amazing and transformative, imagine if it's in the way that we wanted it originally, which is we want everyone to stay together, you pray Fajr together, you do Tadabbur together, you read Quran together, you do your spiritual practices together, you learn together, you do sports together. That never happened because of the logistics. But that's the model that we adopt, because that model is, one, exhausting. Like, we go to bed maybe midnight, we wake up at 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning for tahajjud and so on and so forth. And we stay up, we do Quran, dhikr, whatever the case may be. And we spend all that time together. The ego won't have any energy. The ego's battery will die. And that's when the next level transformative process occurs. The transformation happens at that time, because you're just diminished. And then you're literally taking everything in and internalizing what is said, internalizing the experience, and something happens. So imagine if we did that with these 4 days, it would have been on the next level as well. Because it's part of the process. Because really, any type of ilm, any type of transformation requires humility, requires a breakdown of previous baggage, negative perceptions, whatever the case may be. And that is usually because we all have an ego, isn't it? It's based on the nafs of the ego. But when you're doing ibadah together, you're tired, it's exhausting, you're trying to get along and you're experiencing things together, and you all experience this kind of exhaustion, mental, spiritual, physical. It has a temporary effect on the ego. Yeah, it's just like fighters, right? In boxing, in the beginning, they'll swear at each other, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to this, I'm going to that. After 12 rounds, they're hugging and kissing. Because that exhaustion, it basically temporarily diminishes the ego. And that's the time to engage with someone. They become like fertile ground. Yeah. So that's the my tadabbur on the powerful nature of retreats, that you sleep together, you share rooms together, you eat together, you pray together, you do tahajjud together, you do tadabbur of the Quran together. That's a transformative experience. Yeah. So yeah, it's great. It was transformative. And what we'll try and do is next time always have it like a retreat. Now, the reason we didn't do it in Pakistan this time, because it would have been too expensive for people. But then we realized we could do it in a masjid.
you could do it in masjid,
Yeah, and there are some, I remember, I forgot who it was now, there was a mufti that was saying to me, they have access to a masjid with dormitories, and they have the upstairs, which I think is like a musalla as well, but no one's allowed upstairs. So we could have had it for ourselves. And for the salah, we go down for the public salah. But then you go back upstairs, you do your learning, do your sports, do your tadabbur, do your tahajjud, do this, that, and the other. And then you could eat there as well. So, and that's a cheap, free option. That would have been transformative too. So next time we'll adopt that model as well. Inshallah.
Yeah, that would be. The one thing that was really great, like, I don't know, that, when we're teaching here in Naseeha as well, so we're always really concerned, and, usually because we're teaching as well, we're part of the management team as well. So there is and we have a lot of students. And, so when we're interacting with our students, there's always this question that we always have that, that do you maintain that sort of some distance, that formality between an ustad and a talib ilm? And we're always debating about that, because I think we're all really, really frank with our students. And we see that, I think they don't, like, there's a lot of jokes, and we always sort of sit down, and that's not how we took it from our ustads, right? So, we were very, very, very formal, extremely formal. And so we always sort of sit and talk about that. Are we doing the right thing? Is that okay? And believe me, wallahi, when I saw you with, with Sheikh Haitham and all of that, that really, I don't know, like it sort of gave me this daleel that could be one way as well. And that was so beautiful to sort of see the connection that you have with, you know, the
it's
Mashaykh.
context based as well, because we live in different times. And I think there is a need to disarm people. And Shaykh Haytham al-Haddad, may Allah preserve him, he has an ability to disarm you. I remember in the Visionaries in Turkey, there was someone who is quite popular. He wanted to leave because Shaykh Haytham made a joke, like he's making a joke with everybody, or halal jokes, but he has his own maybe baggage. He took it the wrong way. Shaykh Haytham we were all surprised. This guy he's pre-framed it, or he's framed it in a way that is indicative of his own issues, not anything else. You know, you could tell. And the way Shaykh Haytham just took the blame, sat him down, apologized when he didn't have to at all, right? It was an egoless. And that's the beauty of Shaykh Haytham, because Shaykh Haytham, may Allah preserve him, I called him a beast. Not in a bad way. He's a beast. He's like a spiritual warrior. Like, you know, he's obviously older than me. I don't know how old he is, but he's older than me. He obviously had his illness. You know, he had cancer. Then, alhamdulillah, so far everything is fine. May Allah protect him and preserve him. And he has that principled approach of a scholar, intellectual warrior, da'i. Like he would sleep in a masjid. He doesn't need a hotel. I don't think he would never take, if he was given the option, he would never take business class. He takes economy. I've heard stories where he would take his own taxi. He wouldn't be driven. He would pay for his own lunch because he said, I'll pay for it in England. Why would I pay for it here? Why would you pay for it here? He never wastes time. When he shared room with people, you know, he's quietly waking up at 3 a.m, doing his qiyam, tahajjud, I think maybe even every day. He's fasting Mondays and Thursdays, even when he's traveling. Yeah. And he had 5 events or 4 events that day. I was like, oh my God. Like, you know, I'm relatively fit, right? And I'm thinking, should I fast that day? I don't know, man.
I've got thinking as well, because
I've got 5 events, you know. And I was actually thinking on yesterday, Monday, of trying to do it. One reason was as well, if Shaykh Haytham's gonna do it, then I must have some shame and do it as well, because he's like older and this, that, and the other. And I didn't end up doing it, right? And I had 5 events, and it was tiring. But Shaykh Haytham, very similar. But yeah, you know, he's fasting, and even when he's like in between, like studios or auditoriums or whatever the case may be, the adhan goes, the masjid's there, he'll go to the mosque. And yani, from a kind of fiqh perspective, he's got a lot of excuses for many reasons. With the fasting, with the going to the mosque, because of the traveling, you're in between places, you got appointments, Allah knows, yeah? And yet he has this really high standards for himself. And wallahi, the du'at, we are just like scumbags compared to him. You know, the young du'at, we think we know something, we're on YouTube, we're doing this, that, and the other. He's such a role model. Such a role model. And that's why in Pakistan, you know, hopefully one of the reasons where when he was on platform with him, I would say, you know, I'll give him a lot of respect and love, and tell people to respect and love him, because people need to see him more. He needs to be the global superstar. Because, you know, unfortunately in the dawah, people just do 1 event a day. Oh, I'm too tired, I'll do 2 maximum. And, you know, I'm the Shaykh Haytham school of thought, yeah? Just, yalla, let's do it. I mean, if you're a laborer, you would work from 8 in the morning to 8 at night for dunya. What about for deen? You should be even more, right? And we think we're superstars and this, that, and the other. And Shaykh Haytham, even, you know, he's a little bit older, and whatever the case may be, he would just work. When people would sleep on the plane, he's on his laptop, not wasting time. He's very time conscious. And not only that, dhikr all the time, right? His Quran, catching up with his Quran. All of these, it's like, there's like, what else? Yeah, he's like, you know, he really wants to be like the Prophet Sallam, or at least like Abu Bakr radiallahu an. And he's a role model. And even the way he engages with people in an egoless way. Like, you know, Sapiens Institute collaborated with Sibyl. Our project is the Visionaries. This started with a kind of corridor conversation. It was outside, but it was like a corridor conversation outside the Chinese embassy in London. it was, I think from what I remember, I was talking about issues with the dawah, and we need leadership, we need, prophetic character or akhlaq, or, the prophetic characteristics of bravery and hilm and compassion and wisdom and sacrifice, all of that kind of stuff, right? And, leadership in the dawah. And he was like, yeah, bismillah, let's do it. He was so excited. And I'm telling you, I had half an intention. I was like, yeah, it's a good idea, but I don't know if it's going to happen. He pressed on me. And maybe out of shame, I said, yallah, we're going to do this, right? Alhamdulillah, we did it. And from, his maqam that he has, or whatever the case may be, his status with Allah knows. But the barakah that has happened, it's just something else. Like his team, the Sibu brothers, I don't think I've ever worked with a bunch of brothers so egoless before.
Sure.
Like, not one argument, not one issue. Like, I'm telling you, from an operational risk, financial, relationship, leadership point of view, it's like, I mean, what kind of tarbiyah has Sheikh given them? It's phenomenal. Right? Like, literally, I'm saying this has given me a lot of hope. Because, I've managed a dawah organization before, a global dawah organization. I'm managing an institute, and you're in the dawah scene. Sometimes you don't lose hope, but sometimes you're like, you know what? I'm looking up and there's no role models. Like literally.
Yeah.
Because I'm in the scene, right? But Sheikh Haytham, he's the role model, man. And may Allah preserve him. Wallahi, if we lose him, it's game over.
Definitely. So okay, on this idea of having role models, and I think that is one thing that I think we're missing. We really are, and even as an institute, we speak about that so much. And I think that the one issue with that is perhaps also the notion of identity and how we sort of view ourselves as Muslims, as du'at, and as the kind of work that we're trying to do. And when we speak about identity, I think the biggest issues facing the youth today, especially those who are sort of like on the borderline, who want to become more practicing, but it's either family or friends or their social circle and all of that. I think the thing they fear the most is that change. That, what will I lose? How I was viewed before, how people saw me. And so I really, really want to ask you, because we're Muslim, and I'm speaking about Muslim people, and you sort of made that journey from, reverting, right? So how much did that play a part in your mind when you were sort of going through that process, or you were coming? I don't know how you were exposed to Islam. Then when you were exposed to Islam, how long it took you? What was the struggle then? And what were the shubahat in your mind and the struggles that you were facing at that point in time when you finally decided to take the shahada?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the wrong person, because it was a little bit more easier for me, because generally speaking, I can be an assertive character, I can go against the grain, I guess, to a certain degree. One would argue I have that type of leadership characteristic, so it wasn't that hard. My upbringing is a little bit, it's unique, because, my mum is a refugee. She's from Cyprus, the Turkish Cypriot conflict in 1974. She came here, UK.
Yeah.
And my dad came in the 70s as well. He's born in Athens, but from northwest Greece. My dad is not a typical Greek, so he's not nationalistic. He felt that, nation-state boundaries are quite fake, right? From that perspective. And he is like a spiritual humanist, if you want to categorize him. It's hard to categorize, but, he loves the perceived teachings of Jesus. He's not really interested in religious dogma. It's about self-development and stuff like that. So I was brought up in that environment, you see.
Fairly open and like...
Yeah, and, I was brought up in an area in London called Hackney. And Hackney is very multicultural. You have Pakistanis, Bengalis, Turks, Kurds, white people from, the Afro-Caribbean, people from Africa. Their background is African background, Nigerian or Sierra Leone. And I was brought up in like almost a ghetto, in a way, for the first at least 14 years of my life. It was in the Downs Estates in the 80s and 90s. So, and then we moved. So my upbringing is a little bit different. It's not a typical Greek Orthodox Christian background. It's not a typical Greek cultural background either. Although I went to Greek schools on Saturdays.
That's like
I went to Greek school on Saturdays.
Is that like a church thing, or
yeah, it is connected with church sometimes, but it was more for language and culture. Then maybe every 4 weeks you have a Holy Communion in the church. I wasn't really interested in the church, to be honest, but I kind of believed in God-ish. Anyway, so that's my background, and my dad would teach us to be trying to be confident and, you know, aspire and not to have an inferiority complex and to be articulate, or, you know, things like that. Not to have, you know, any negative internal issues, to try and make sure you are as loving and conscientious as possible, right? Yeah, there was issues, and, you know, as you grow up, nothing's perfect. But generally speaking, that was the vibe, yeah? So me becoming Muslim was probably easier. Like, yeah, I got a little bit of friction from my parents, but they accepted me, and we have a great relationship. So I can't claim, oh, my parents didn't want me. Yes, did they have the wrong perception about Islam and Muslims? For sure. But over time and throughout my behavior and character, I think they... And even me trying to unpack certain issues for them, they got it. They say this guy is the same guy, but his Andreas, that's my name, Christian name or Western name, Andreas 2.0, hopefully, you know. And, you know, I try to be at their service as best as possible. I know I should do much more.
How did you come towards the religion? What was the inspiration? How did you come to the religion? How did you come
to Islam? Oh, well, there were 3 main reasons, I think. Now, look, I have this thing about being accurate, and I get this kind of OCD or waswasa, yeah? So I'm always going to put a caveat, because retrospectively looking back into the past, sometimes you make your own story of it, yeah? So I'm not claiming to be like it fully accurate. Or it's like a, you know, I'm conscious of that, because these are, you know, yani on the day of judgment, I don't want Allah to say, hey, that was, you know. So the caveat is, from who I am now, looking back, this is my assessment, yeah? So the filters of today, looking into the past. So 3 main reasons, I think. One was I found Islam rational. It made sense to the mind. You know, proof of God, proof of Quran, stuff like that. Number 2, I found the values of Islam quite appealing. Whether it's to do with how brothers and sisters communicate with each other, whether it's to do with, you know, the sense of honor, the sense of, you know, their akhlaq, stuff like that. And then the other one was the brotherhood. So I was kind of envious of that brotherhood, I guess. Yeah, it was very special. Although I had good Muslim friends, but I wouldn't be really in the inner circle because I wasn't Muslim, right? And it says maybe looking back, I wanted to be in that inner circle because it looks special, right? So those were the 3 main things. And it was a journey. It's been a journey since then. I had to learn the hard way for sure. Because in 2002, you didn't have institutes and the online world and access to mashayikh. It was just... you had to learn things maybe a little bit the harder way.
And that's interesting because like a year back, you have, I think, 9/11, which perhaps changed the even the sort of dynamic for Muslims living abroad. So it is, you know, like Allah Ta'ala chooses, you know, someone for hidayah, because I think I read somewhere that's really interesting sort of assessment. They said that perhaps 9/11 in that sense actually pushed Islam to the mainstream. There was it was on the media everywhere. And I think, if I'm not wrong, the Holy Quran actually became one of the best-selling books.
Yeah, it was out of print, I think. Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting.
I mean, my dad, I'm not saying his politics is center-left or left, but he knew about, you know, the American hegemony. So, you know, he's Greek. A lot of Greeks have an understanding of, you know, there are superpowers and they have agendas. So my dad wasn't really anti-Islamic like that from that perspective at all. He understood that there are, you know, powers at play. There are things going on in the world. And so I wasn't like, you know, I wasn't brought up pro-American or pro-capitalist or pro-liberal from that perspective. I wasn't the opposite either, but it was more of a balanced neutral. So I wasn't really as affected by the 9/11 stuff, to be honest. Because we understood that, you know, there were wars, the Iraq, what was before 9/11? There were the Bosnian War. Yeah. Then you had so many other different issues where, you know,
Kuwait right before.
Yeah, of course. Maybe, you know, America played some games. Yeah, the Kuwait War, right? Yeah, absolutely. That was in 1991.
91.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff, we, you know, my dad wouldn't read tabloids. I mean, he would maybe for sports, but he would read other newspapers for analyses. So he would get the bigger picture. It's not like, us against them. So I wasn't brought up like that. So it didn't really affect me in that way, especially because I knew many Muslims anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, some Muslims were awful, some Muslims were good. Yeah. Well, they weren't practicing, that's for sure. Yeah, some of them. Yeah. But anyway, the point is, so I knew these guys are cool. Yeah, they're my bros. They're my guys. It's fine. Yeah, I had Turkish friends, I had Pakistani friends, Bengali friends. Yeah, usually when I make a decision, sometimes I'm very indecisive. But when I make a decision, then even if it means there's an earthquake's gonna happen, I'm gonna make the decision. Yeah. So you have to
How do you learn that? Like, is that genetic or like? Because I think that's the solution for so many people. People just being sure of who they are and just being confident in the way they want to live. Like, do you think that's like something that I think you mentioned your parents, the role your father played as well, or do you think it was just it's in your genes? That's just who you are.
I don't know. To say that I know, I would be lying. Yeah. Everything is from Allah, man. I don't know. Even I know I'm what do you call it? The performance Hamza is not here today. I'm just, hopefully this is like a living room conversation. You can tell by my body language. Yeah. I'm a bit tired. Yeah. So maybe in another setting, I would have maybe found some reason why I'm like that. But to be honest, I don't know. Yeah. A lot of it is probably because of my dad. Yeah. He was very principled in many things. Some things there was a lot of flexibility, but in some things it was like, okay, this is non-negotiable. Like, even if it meant his suffering. Yeah. So I learned that from my dad and my granddad, his father. So that was very special to me. So if I'm convinced with a certain principle, like sometimes when people talk to me, brothers talk to me, they talk to me as if, Hamza, this is in your benefit. I'm like, guys, I don't care if this is going to improve my reputation or if I'm going to get some likes or that I'm not really bothered about that. Yeah. Even if they gave me money, it's just how I was brought up and how I saw my dad live. And you need to give me a principle. If I'm convinced in that principle and what I'm doing is going against that principle, then khalas, I agree with you. That's how I work, right? Generally, yeah, on those important things. And that was my leadership style as well when I led IERA as an organization. One brother used to say to me, he said to me once, you're the most unpredictable guy I know. Because generally my default position is, relative nice, compassionate, getting along, not imposing myself. I hate imposing myself on things that are unnecessary. Yeah, there's almost a shyness to it. Like I just don't like it. It's just not my thing. Yeah, maybe that's the thing I got from my dad as well. I think. Yeah, I like to be kind of independent that way, not in a egotistical way, but in a way I don't like imposing, yani. I don't like it making difficult for people or giving them a hard time, or my presence is gonna create some friction or agitation. I'd rather just be alone. Or, do you see? Yes, I'm relatively, hopefully I'm okay with people. But when there's some red lines, then they see a lion. Honestly, I mean, I'm not saying lion in a positive sense. I get aggressive or I get assertive. So there are some non-negotiable things. Now, the reason you think I'm unpredictable because you don't know where my red lines are. Because you're not sharing the same principles as me. Yeah? You have to share the same principles as me. Now, what I've learned in leadership is you can't assume that they have to share the same principles as you, or they see it in the same way. So what I've learned now is to take people on the journey so they could start internalizing and adopting those key principles, which I think are prophetic. So that's been a shift in my understanding, I guess. But yeah, so in terms of change, Allah made it easy, man. Allah made it easy. Allah made it very easy.
So what do you think in your own personal journey was more convincing? Because, for example, there's one Hamza that I've seen debating with people like Lawrence Cross, and that sort of Hamza was very intellectual. And then there's a Hamza which is the personal one that's sharing his journey. And I saw that during the Visionaries. What do you think is more needed in terms of, because especially in Pakistan, I think sometimes when you are having all those debates, so you realize it's less to do with the fact that they were really convinced about all that, and now you need to convince them back into why you believe in a God. But sometimes that personal faith and conviction, which starts to reflect on somebody through interactions, might be more influential in terms of convincing them that this is right as compared to all the intellectual debates. So what do you think about your own personal journey?
100%. 100%. States of being give rise to states of being. Like, why are debates effective? You think people really understood what I said? Some people had no clue. I even got messages. Some people didn't know, but the very fact I was there and defending the deen and he sounded confident and assertive and eloquent.
There is a reason.
Khalas, it created an awakening. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah.
Let's be even more honest. Maybe some of the stuff I didn't even know what I was talking about. Maybe on one or two issues, yeah? Come on.
Yeah.
Let's
you
be
have to
honest.
be,
It was after I got into academia, I did the postgrads in philosophy. I'm doing a PhD now. Fine. Maybe I'm more grounded.
Alhamdulillah.
But then it was like, was it full, complete understanding? Maybe on the shallow surface, but if you scratch the surface, I could have been exposed. Allah knows. But the thing is, you're right. States of being give rise to states of being.
Yeah.
So there is a difference between abstract information, abstract ilm, and transformation.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest crises in our ummah is the gap between knowledge or information and true ilm and transformation. Because ilm in an Islamic context is actually that which transforms you. The Quran makes this very clear. Is the one who knows like the one who doesn't know. What does Allah say before that? Those who stand in prayer, who hope, in the mercy of the Lord, who fear the day of judgment, stuff like that. In other places, those who have taqwa, who have awe of Allah. So it's a transformational thing. And it's not just a memorization. People thinking knowing a hadith and ayat means you have ilm. Or even if you memorize fiqh books. No, you don't have ilm. It may be needed for ilm. It may be the basis for ilm. It may be the start for ilm. But it's not ilm in totality. But people think that's the case. Oh, he's so knowledgeable. Yeah, so is my phone. So is my iPad. In actual fact, an algorithm soon in the next 5 years would be more smarter than the faqih. Maybe.
Exactly.
In an abstract sense, yeah? So the biggest crisis of the ummah today is the gap between how we see knowledge and transformation. The abstract information and true ilm, true transformation. Because memorization doesn't give rise to transformation. There is a gap. So how do we bridge that gap? Well, firstly, we have to understand that there is a distinction. There is a distinction between abstract learning and becoming, right? Because being a Muslim is not an ethno-religious identity. It's not a badge that you wear, right? Like someone who does jihad to struggle. Someone who does jihad is a mujahid. So someone who's a Muslim is someone who is surrendering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's a way of being. It's what's in your heart, how you communicate, what you express, what's on your tongue, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others, and how you relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your actions. All of this stuff together is your way of being. Islam changes your way of being. So any ilm that you have should be changing your way of being. If it doesn't, then you're not learning ilm properly. Or you're not engaging with tazkiyatun nafs, which is important for the internalization process, which is actually a key part of the learning process, which we have secularized and we removed it from a key focus of our work. So the point here is we need to internalize what we know. Like, for example, I'm assuming you both memorized the Quran of Baha, right? You've memorized the Quran?
No.
Half of it?
No.
1/3?
I was too late into my deen.
Okay, fine, but you've memorized a lot. You know more than one juz, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. You know more Quran than many Sahaba. Are you like Sahaba?
No.
So memorization doesn't give rise to transformation. So look at the method of the way the Sahaba learned the Quran, for example. They would take 10 verses, they would actualize, internalize, act upon those verses, and then go to the next. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, I think it took him 9 years to memorize Surah Al-Baqarah. If your son did that, he'd probably get tappar. Yeah? Do you see the point?
Yeah.
Because we like to follow the Sahaba, the best companions, but we're not following their pedagogy. We're not following the way they internalize the deen. And that's why there's a big crisis.
Where are we going wrong?
Well, we're not taking it seriously. We're not making a distinction between knowing and truly knowing and becoming.
But like in terms of application, like for example, I know like it's easy to say, but like I think like if I talk about my child, I'll be like, you know what, I want him to become hafiz like the way the Sahaba did it, right?
Yes.
But
Well,
like,
do it then.
either we're failing as like with our curriculums or our institutes or the way we're going about
Yeah,
it.
of course we are. We export Hufad like it's a Chinese sweatshop factory. Sweatshop. You know, it's like a factory. There you go. But these toys, usually from China, are very cheap and they break easily, right? I'm not saying we shouldn't memorize the Quran, of course, or recite the Quran, of course. Glorifying Allah, preserving the deen, it's a huge honor. But do it like the Sahaba did. Simple. Take it seriously. Like I'm saying this might be controversial. I'd rather my son to internalize the key Quranic principles and be a walking Quran than memorize the Quran. 100%.
For sure, yeah.
Because Allah wants us to be guided. That's the whole point of the Quran. So this is something that we need to focus on, take very seriously, because the Quran is not going to change. The Quran will not change society if everyone memorizes the Quran. 100%, because we have more hufaz today than before. Statistically, the Quran will change your life if you become the Quran. Now, ideally, we want both, that you memorize and you internalize, for sure. But I would always say the prioritization is the internalization. Because that's the key maqsad, that's the key objective of the Quran, to guide you. Right? And this is extremely important. And that's why states of being give rise to states of being. So if someone is humble, it will give rise to humility. If someone is loving, it will give rise to love. If someone's certain, it will give rise to certainty. If someone has conviction, it will give rise to conviction. You can't really learn this from a book. I can't learn humility from a book. I could read 50 volumes. I could memorize all the ahadith on humility, the ayat on humility and related topics, and it doesn't mean I'll become a humble person. But I'll become a humble person if I'm hanging around with Shaykh Haytham. Or you guys. MashaAllah.
This is our struggle, by the way, because like we're always be like, so like you go through so many years of ilm, right? And now our students are asking us the same thing, because and I remember just exactly what you're saying, right? Okay, ilm is very functional. Like I'm sitting, I'm trying to memorize the concepts and all of that, but that does not make me wake up for tahajjud, right? If I'm studying till 2 a.m. or if I'm leaving my classes at 12 p.m., I might even struggle with my fajr, right? So I think that, that's where we, practically applying what we've learned is perhaps like the hardest thing today.
That's why you need good people around you. Like once I gave a lecture years ago in Masjid Quba in Bradford in the UK. I think it was 2008. There was a Channel 4 program, I think it was Channel 4, that said something negative about the Quran, Orientalist, ridiculous critique. I did a presentation. They were from the Deobandi tradition. And in the front line, there were Deobandi ulama sitting and listening to me. Yeah, because it was a contemporary issue. They didn't watch the program. They're too busy teaching, doing big stuff. I was like a, upcoming, da'i, and I was sharing Islam, and I had an argument to show that what Channel 4 was wrong, and they have the ilm, but I had the articulation, if you like. Yeah, I was trying to show them. I think I had a PowerPoint slide. They put presentation screen for me. From what I remember, yeah, stuff like that. When I finished, and the way one of the scholars or the elders approached me, held my hand, gave me a gift of itar, and just, I think I nearly burst out crying. The humility was so overwhelming. I was like, whoa. And that taught me a lot. Another time I was in this dars I think it was the tafsir of Surah Rahman. Someone corrected the sheikh. Like, you're wrong, basically. The sheikh listens. Yeah, you're right, actually. Just the way he did it with that argument, humility, and it was genuine. I was like, come on, you can't read that in a book. You may read it in a book, but it won't affect you because there is this like unwritten law that you need someone to show you the way of being. Ways of being give rise to ways of being. We're too book-centric, which was hardly ever our tradition anyway. We were book teacher-centric. The teacher would teach the matan, the text, correct? And maybe he would explain and show you. That art is lost. We don't like sitting at the feet of the scholars. Another time, I was teaching in a Deobandi Institute in the north in England. Deobandi Institute. The scholars were in front of me writing notes. I was teaching like how to give dawah, dawah methodology, and from my experiences and stuff like that. Again, them sitting there writing notes. Yani, I'm nothing compared to them. Nothing. But what kind of humility do you need to do that? Ajib, yeah? It's just something else. So you need to have those spiritual role models around you, that they have embodied these principles and they live it, and it's gonna rub off on you. We know the hadith and the ayat about friends and people that you hang around with, and there's a reason for that, and this is in line with social conformity and social psychology anyway. You need good people around you. If you don't, you better find them, because you're going to be left alone to your own devices, and you probably end up destroying yourself anyway. So you need to have those spiritual role models, authentic spiritual role models, like they're living it, like, you know, it's oozing out of the tongue and the heart and the actions. Humility, rahmah, concern, care. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ changed the Sahaba, I would argue. You know, the Sahaba felt they were the most beloved person to the Prophet ﷺ, which wasn't usually the case. He had a hierarchy of who, you know, was special to him, of course. But he made them feel like, I'm the most beloved person to him. The way he spoke to them, the body language, the listening with the intention to understand, the forbearance, the care, the intense mercy, the rahmah, the connection, how he created the best version of themselves, how he spoke to them and interacted physically with them. It got the best out of them. So that's what we need. We need that. I think, wasn't it the mother of Imam Malik that said, learn hilm before ilm? Learn the humanity, the forbearance, the kindness, the beautiful character before knowledge. And this relates to, I think I mentioned earlier, we need to focus on the qalb. This is part of our tradition. A very 14th century scholar, he was the student of Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah have mercy on him, he mentioned a really good point. He basically said that the internal diseases or the internal things that you need to fix or the internal actions, something related to that, is more important than the external in general. Yes, there are areas when that's not always the case, but in general, our pedagogy is not based on that. What's the first hadith of Bukhari? Ikhlas. Where is ikhlas? It's in your nose, your ears, your pancreas, your liver. It's in the heart. Where is ilm? Heart. It's in the qalb. Where is taqwa? Isn't ibadah and actions a derivative of our taqwa, our state of heart? Yeah, we focus on these external actions so much, we forget this. They're both needed. But a key obligation is the internal. When was the last time we focused, like on a daily basis, a reminder or a matan or something concerning the qalb? The qalb does taqallub, it wavers, qalaba, to turn. It has fitan, shahawat, shubahat, blameworthy desires, destructive doubts. It has diseases. The main diseases include kibr, arrogance, hasad, blameworthy jealousy, ujub, vanity, self-amazement, and riya, ostentation, showing off. There's ways in our tradition, in the Quran and the Sunnah and the way of the scholars to deal with these diseases. But if you don't deal with these diseases, your heart is spiritually hard. And the aql, the intellect, according to the majority of the ulama, is a function of the qalb. It's a function of the qalb. So no matter what you know, how much Quran you know in abstraction, how many hadith you know, if your heart is diseased and is facing the fitan, shahawat, shubuhat, the aql is not functioning properly because it's within the heart. Simple. But we don't do it.
And we
it
try
just
and
becomes
do it the other way around,
slogan. It's slogan. It's sloganeering.
That's the reason I think probably the Quran says, وَيُزَكِّهِمْ بِفَوْا وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ.
Yeah, we do it the other way around.
You've got to do the tazkiyah before.
Well, Allah also says that you're not going to be safe in the day of judgment unless you come to Allah with a qalbin salim, with a sound heart. Allah says the one who purifies his soul succeeds. And in this context, qalb and the nafs could be used interchangeably. Yeah, we're not focusing on it. I mention this in maybe every single podcast I go on, even if it's nothing to do with this. I'll have a deliberate strategy to mention it. You heard it maybe yesterday. You heard it the day before. It's a deliberate strategy for maybe two reasons. One reason is I need to sort myself out. So I need to talk about this. Yeah. Secondly, I really believe strategically, from an educational Islamic revival point of view, this is the crux of the matter. Oh, brother, but it's qualitative. We can't really quantify it. Shush. Since when did we become like mathematical and binary and when it comes to the deen? Yeah? The point is, we need to sort this out because the corruption in the ummah, the failings of the ummah, all of these issues Yes, they're actions. Corruption is an action. This is an action. Dhulm, oppression is an action. But what motivated those actions? They are a derivative of your state of heart. You could focus on the action all day, my friend. But if the hearts are the same, you give them the same context, they'll do the same thing. Which reminds you about when Allah says, those who will say, give me another chance to go back to the dunya, the people of the hellfire. Allah says, yeah, if you were given a chance, you do the same thing. Yeah. So we need to focus on this. And you need good people around you. You need brave people. Sometimes it's very hard for us to have, someone to hold us and say, hey, I've seen signs of kibr in you. And they do it in a way with rahmah and hikmah to get the best out of you. We've lost that art. That's why I have a lot of love for Shaykh Haytham. Yeah. Because we don't really have people like that anymore. We're too scared. We're too sensitive. Yeah. Oh, he's got a big profile. Leave him. He's all right. He's too famous to be held to account.
True. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely crazy. Look, I'm failing in this as well. Yeah. That's what I'm speaking about all the time, just to give me a bit more courage, because I think I need to be a bit more assertive with myself and others. That's for sure. And I think even though what I've done so far, it is helping create a narrative where people need to be speaking about these things. Like I just launched a YouTube channel a few months ago. My first talk was on ikhlas. What is ikhlas and how to develop it? It was about over an hour long. I felt that was the most important thing. And also traditionally, the hadith books, and I felt that's one of the most important things. But I have a podcast with Sheikh Abu Aliya on purification of the heart, the diseases of the heart. But we need to repeat it all the time. We probably need to repeat it more than we repeat, for example, things like God's existence or other things in the da'wah, because this is so central to our success. So central to the barakah of our actions, so central to the acceptance of our actions, so central to our unity. Because if you have kibr and ego, you're not going to unify with people. You're not going to bring the ummah together. You're not going to do all of these amazing things. You're not going to have a great vision that's Allah-centric and akhirah-centric. It will be organizational-centric. It will be ego-centric. Right? Which many organizations, the vision is just stops at the organization. It's not global. It's not connected truly to Allah's pleasure or truly to the akhirah. Because we think the organization becomes the ends. We don't think it's a means anymore, which is ridiculous. So we should always ask ourselves the question, what does Allah want from me specifically in this moment? What is closest to the pleasure of Allah in this particular moment? So, and you've learned this. You went through the Nizami program, correct?
Yeah.
It's in your books, my dear Muftis. It's in your books. You know what it is? You just need to do it. You need to do it. You need to fake it till you make it. You just need to do it. And you just admit, maybe I don't have it. You don't have it. Let's have it together. Let's do it together. Let's take each other on this journey. Let's focus. Let's reflect. Let's talk about this. And the ulama spent time and sacrifice to write these treaties, these works for us to engage with this. Because this is central to our success. Because how many people have so much ilm? Look at me, I have ilm. I dress the part. I look all cool. I look like I've never gone to the toilet in my life. I look like I've never sinned in my life. In actual fact, I'm not even human. I'm an angel. Actually, I'm better than the angels, right? Let's be honest. Sometimes, maybe this is my projection, but sometimes that's how they come across. There's a lack of authenticity going on here.
And you can't relate. You just can't.
And yet these people don't make that much impact. And even our strategy in the dawah shows we have not an optimal ikhlas. Because what's our strategy? Videos, lectures, videos, lectures, videos, lectures, videos, lectures, videos, lectures, videos, lectures. Okay, in 10 years you'll be irrelevant. In 20 years you'll be forgotten. Khalas. And what happened? Who are you building? Yeah. And that's why I really respect Shaykh Haytham. The people that he has built, phenomenal. Like take Sulaiman, the finance guru of the world in Islamic finance. Speaking to the UN, politicians, engaging with people, being a frame of reference, developing projects, having investment funds. The first ever, when he announced it in the Visionaries, the first ever bank that is connected to gold. And they're developing to transact in that way as well. Allahu Akbar. And there's much more. He's developing, educational stuff on this issue, and it's connected to morals and social system, and showing that Islam is a superior civilization because it comes from Allah. I mean, come on. And this guy is not like a popular, well, he's popular, but he's not popular like someone famous. But that kind of fame is what you call a non-transformative fame. You may change many people's lives individually, which is great, and we need it, by the way. But this is civilizational transformation. This is something else, man. And for me, I think in our context, it's more important. Based on the hadith of Wahan. Love of dunya and fear of death. We're going to be like the foam of the sea. Aren't we going to be great numbers, O Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Yeah, you will, but you're going to be like the scum of the sea. So numbers are not that important. They're important, but we also need substance. Because, the different nations are going to come together and try to, they would want a piece of us. Meaning we won't have that civilizational superiority.
In a world that's going online, because a lot of what you say has to do with the living tradition, where you be with the person, you travel with the person, you live with the person, you use, because tazkiyah is not like a formula that you just memorize and then
yes, 100%.
It's done. And it's not something that, so, and adding on to that, the problem that the youth is really, really connected to the media and the entertainment, and it's not like they don't believe in Allah. They do. For example, especially in Pakistan, so they would believe in Allah Rabbul Izzat, but this is so connected to that entertainment industry and all that.
Yes.
So how do you reverse that? And especially, I don't know how is it in UK, but in Pakistan, the mosque is like it's become so irrelevant, unfortunately, in people's life, because it's just like for prayer. That's it. And you can't take your kids there. You can't take your family there. You just got to pray, and then leave. How do you create that living tradition?
No, I don't know.
Sohbah?
I don't know. But I wouldn't say the youth are connected with social media. They're engaged with social media just by virtue of it giving you a false sense of, I don't know, fulfillment. But they're not connected. It's just, zombie scrolling. Some things may affect them and impact them for sure. And I've seen that with myself. People have been changed and their lives have been changed and they maybe have become Muslim even. That's fine. But on a macro level, is it the only strategy we should be adopting? Of course not. And I know this because at Sapiens Institute, we have a project called Lighthouse Mentoring. Lighthouse Mentoring service has two main key aspects. One is we mentor imams, du'at, mashayikh, parents, etc. how to make an impact in their families or the community or the dawah. So it gives them a vision and a strategy. That's why we have the visionaries. It's like part of that work. Then the other part, which is the majority part, is that we deal with people who have left Islam, people with the shubahat, destructive doubts, so on and so forth. Many of these people could find the answers online, but it didn't work for them. What worked was that engagement with someone else one-to-one. There is almost an unwritten law of Allah that you have to engage with people. If the online is enough, then the Quran is just enough. But the Quran is not just enough. You need the Sunnah, the living tradition. You need a living tradition in a living community. And that's what we need. We just need to revive that. And we need to have a strategy online to continue the great work that's happening online and maybe refine it, make it better, of course. But at the same time, use it as a link to bring people to the local communities or imams so they can have that one-to-one interaction. It is required. And, one would argue maybe we should have a vision for the masajid in Pakistan. Sure. The vision should be, I see a Pakistan where the masajid are like the masajid of the Sahaba and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's a good vision. Yeah. Because I've noticed as well, the one that we went to, there were kids there for sure, but it wasn't very family-centric.
You don't have that culture.
Yeah, I don't even think is there durus in the masjid?
Very less.
Well, that's the problem.
In fact,
maybe you guys are to blame as well. You have this external institute, it's not even in a mosque.
Yeah.
I'm not saying in a bad way. I'm saying
I get that point.
Sometimes we have to be the solution too.
Yeah.
Now you may argue, but we have a masalla upstairs, it's a mosque.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know it's hard because sometimes we do the easy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes leadership, you just have to be courageous and do the hard thing. Or do the thing that is necessary. Not the thing that you want, but the thing that is needed. And a lot of our dawah and a lot of things that we do, there may be khair in it, but it's not really Allah-centric to the degree that it's closest to the optimal pleasure of Allah, if you like, yeah? It's more, it's fine, you get reward, but it's not the best thing that you can do. We don't care about the best thing that we can do. We care about the thing that's rewardable and the thing that is easy for us, the thing that we want, not what we need, not what the dawah needs, or what Allah wants even more. Because there are different halals, right? Different levels. Some are more praiseworthy than others. Someone who's really Allah-centric, akhirah-centric would ask, forget what I want, forget what's easy, forget what is even rewardable. What is the most rewardable? What is the thing that I should do that's most pleasing to Allah? You ask that question every day and think about it properly and do shura, then things will change. And sometimes we just have to take leadership and say, you know what, right, it will take me another 2 years to convince the board of the masjid or the imam, but let me work on that, because the maslaha, the benefit would be far greater in the long term than the benefit of maybe doing something else. Do you see? That requires a different mindset or a different heart set, you know? This is important. Do you know what I mean?
I think we should end here for Salah as well.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
we're taking a lot of your time and we have to get far as well. Jazakallah khair.
May Allah
Shaykh,
bless
for your
you.
time
Listen,
and,
may Allah bless you both and make Naseeha Institute the best institute in the world.
we will be needing your guidance, inshallah.
I need your guidance. I'll be at your service, but I need your guidance and I'll be at your service. I think the future is Pakistan.
Inshallah.
And I believe Naseeha Institute is going to be part of that process as well. May Allah bless you
Inshallah,
both. Jazakallah for your humility and making me feel like I'm in my living room to a degree and making me feel comfortable.
I know we couldn't do proper ikram, but
No, this is proper, absolutely proper. Just your smiles are enough. They have nourished me. Your smiles have nourished me.
I hope they nourish our wives as well.
Which one? On that note, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.